That is a good doggy.
Let's start off. You're chiropractor, movement doctor.
Yeah.
What were those steps that you took to get to that point in your life?
It's an interesting evolution. It was, not the path that I chose. It was a strong intention of going into medical school. And it's the same story for a lot of chiropractors, where there was like some event that happened in their life that had them question their health, or usually some injury. Mine was a jet ski accident in Austin, Texas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that story goes that I went to allopathic medicine. They wanted to do surgery on me.
What's allopathic medicine?
It's traditional medical practice.
Okay.
In the form of like medication and surgery. It's like your traditional primary care doctors, all under allopathic medical philosophy.
Okay.
Versus alternative or complementary medicine, which is your acupuncture and chiropractic care.
Eastern.
Yeah, like Eastern, or like just non-traditional
Yeah.
techniques that we use. And when it comes to health, it's really trying to understand, what are the best approaches. And so in my situation, I was apprehensive of getting surgery done after my injury.
Yeah.
I visited a chiropractor by whim, and this gentleman basically changed my perspective and just changed the projection of my life.
Wow.
And I saw him for about 6 weeks, and I applied to chiropractic school after that. Chiropractic school is essentially, it's the same as most medical curriculums, and I think a lot of individuals don't have the awareness of what chiropractors actually have the capacity to do.
Yeah.
But allopathic medicine, nursing school, chiropractic, everybody learns 2 years of the basic sciences. That means your anatomy, physiology, cell biochemistry. We all learn the same thing. And then each school branches off into how they're going to diagnose and treat the patient.
Okay.
Yeah, and so chiropractic school is essentially medical school in the sense that we have to go through 4 years of undergraduate degree, and then it's 4 years of intensive doctoral level sciences. Yeah, I did that for 4 years, and then I did a master's in nutrition and functional medicine because the school in Portland, Oregon had the option for nutrition.
Cool.
And I knew some point in my intention of going to medical school was to not keep nutrition out of the equation.
Yeah.
That what is going into the human.
Yeah.
Like, what are they eating? What are they ingesting? What micronutrients and what toxins are they ingesting that are potentially creating their health and also creating their disease?
Right.
And so, when my brain works with an individual, I'm thinking in terms of, the neuromuscular cellular system. How is it operating at its optimal function?
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and so it's been a impressive journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you started off in Texas,
That's right.
went to summer for school, and then went to Portland?
That's right. I went to Baylor University, well-known Baptist University in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that was an experience on itself.
Yeah.
And then after that, I worked for 10 years because I worked for a company where money was kind of my priority.
Sure.
And I was living a good life in...
Doing chiropractic?
No, I was in a retail. I was working retail eyeglass company.
Wow.
Upper eyewear, European style. I was in it was like a fashion / medical industry.
Oh, cool.
And you would go to trade shows in Vegas and Paris and pick out eyewear. I mean, it was basically the fashion industry because we were using these European designers. And purchasing their products and selling them in high-end neighborhoods in Houston, Texas, which is like one of the most affluent places in the States, River Oaks neighborhood. And so, that was just it was a good life I lived. I had a partner for 8 years, wined and dined until
jet ski accident.
And the jet ski accident really was, I think, a pivotal point in my life that without it, I think I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about that, like these strange, almost serendipitous times in your life, or poignant moments in your life that legitimately augment your path, right? And it's interesting, like how it can come in the form of an injury, or a death, or certain things like that. So it's really interesting that you took advantage of that. That moment and saw a different path, right? Because you could have went with the traditional medicine.
Well, what's interesting about that situation and how it, as you said, like serendipitously aligned, was I was trying to figure out how to get myself out of intense pain, which is ironic because I work with so much pain today with patients. And I was in so much pain that I was willing to do anything. And there's nothing like pain to motivate change. And it's kind of sad that we wait for that to happen, for us to make the necessary changes in our life.
The most extreme point.
Rock bottom. You hit rock bottom, the pain's too bad, the depression, the anxiety, before we say, this isn't working. And a lot of the work I'm doing now is to help the individual recognize, I use the analogy of a car, to recognize when the check engine light is on. Because if you ignore the check engine light in your car and you just keep driving it, eventually the engine's going to tarnish or something's going to happen, and then you have a bigger issue than had you just did maintenance. Body's the same way. Your cells are talking to your brain and it's telling you what's working, what's not working. And because we lack the wisdom and the knowledge of knowing what to do or how to change or how to move, we ignore the sign. And then it turns into like catastrophe, and then we make these changes which inadvertently become the things that change our lives for the better. And in my situation, it really, I was, working in a career and living a life that wasn't fulfilling. On paper, everything was pretty good. It was good. I mean, even now when I think back in my life, there's moments where I'm like, did I make the right choice in leaving the relationship, the comfort, the
location,
the stability? And I think about that when my life gets stressful and I feel like compressive. But when I zoom out, I've had such phenomenal, diverse experiences, which just again are bringing me back to like deeper awareness of, I think, a necessity for humans to question when we're talking about health. It's not just physical health. You have to face the existential question of what I'm doing here. And at the root of what makes us suffer and struggle and form addictions around food or anything else that really like creates disease is this underlying question that we ignore and we don't know how to answer. But we all face it. And in my situation, that accident had me start 40 days of yoga, is really what I was going to try to say, is that 40 days of yoga, because I was trying to, change my physique. I was trying to improve my mobility. And so I started 40 days of yoga. And I won't forget the end of that 40 days. It was like at Big Yoga in Houston, Texas, and they did a 40-day challenge. Every day for yoga for 40 days. And by the end of it, my thought process was different. My body was different. And I had enough clarity to say, I'm ready to walk away from this financially lucrative career, from a partnership that was going well, and from my family and friends in a city that I felt was compressive for me. And that was because I got clarity through yoga, through diet change, through changing what I was putting in my body, that I had the capacity to like listen to the wisdom coming from within. That maybe if I had taken the time to do so, I wouldn't have had to wait for the jet ski accident. But nonetheless, it almost was so perfect that I visited a chiropractor. He opened my eyes. He educated me so well. Even the chiropractor himself was like, I feel like such a imperative piece of the puzzle.
Sure.
Because it could have been any other chiropractor, and maybe I wouldn't have made the same changes.
Right. That's the magic and the serendipitous of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've spoken on the channel with a couple people that have sat in this seat about how we become very acclimated to the things in our life, the things we eat, the words we choose, the people we hang around with, and that starts to form grooves and normalcies in our life, right? And then you just become path of least resistance, and you go, I guess this is my life, and you start to accept that. But then when you have these awakenings or these cleansings like yoga or meditation or bad accidents, it shakes that natural pathway, and then it gives you this new paradigm, this new vision. And I was talking to someone recently about it, and they were saying sometimes, this gentleman I was speaking to, he just got out of prison, and he was saying that his metamorphosis that he went through, of his awakening, he shed so many friends he used to have. And it's because his lifestyle changed so much. So he was, grinding in prison, doing all these kinds of bad things. And then he got into yoga and meditation. Yeah. And then after that, he started meeting a whole new people, and everyone that he thought was his family no longer were relevant. And so it makes sense that you had that shakeup, and then now you are where you are now,
Yeah, this at the expense of sounding cliche, it's the vibe attracts your tribe, or like these concepts of like I am a energy vibration or a frequency, and my frequency dictates what is attracted to me or vice versa in the terms of relationship, friendship, career, situations.
Sure.
And so, I think when you really start to, look at the human being, we're more than the walls of our skin, and we're truly complex.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where I think it's so perplexing to even, really try to grasp this idea that I'm atomic at its most rudimentary form, and then into cells, and then into tissue and organ, and then when I look in the mirror, I don't see any of the truth of what I really am.
Right.
I'm actually looking at, this macro being that I've attached social constructs to.
Yeah.
And in the blink of an eye, I've already identified who I think I am.
Yeah.
And then I go out into the world and I forget. And then with that lack of awareness, I can maybe eat the wrong thing or engage in the wrong situation. Right. And so it's so important, I think, for us to really have like a profound awareness of the levels of structure of what makes me me.
Yeah.
And the more I'm working with humans and trying to find the source of dysfunction or disease or anxiety or distress, not just for my patients, honestly, for myself.
Right.
I'm starting to recognize like, oh wow, like even my beingness isn't me. I am intricately tied to everything. So the I am is connected to you and Luca and all of the people I come across in a day.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, we're now getting into like, this philosophy of what am I and who am I?
Well, I'm going to say something about the devil's advocate a little bit, because it's not that when you were in Houston and you were living this life, it wasn't like that wasn't your authentic self. It was just your authentic self that you were at that time.
Yeah.
And then now you're having a different paradigm, a different authentic self. And I think that's okay to have that change and accept that change.
Yeah.
Right? Comparative to be like, oh, I hated myself. Not to say that you were saying that,
right.
But people go like, I was such a bad person then. And it's like, maybe you were, but maybe you were just living what you thought was the right thing for that time.
Sure.
And then now you're
definitely. I mean, it's, in my opinion, the term is unconscious and conscious.
Yeah.
I could only ascend to the consciousness I had at that time.
Right.
And so that's just, of course, who I was.
Yeah.
And the beauty of aging is I start to have the observation of patterns that I can't see in my 20s. I haven't had enough life experience to see the patterns of my behavior and my reactiveness or my belief patterns. It's only when I'm now into my 40s, 4 decades later, that I can see like, oh wow, I do this when that happens. Yeah. And then when you really start to go deeper into the question of like, why am I this way? Or how come this relationship isn't working out? How come I keep experiencing the same thing with 10 different humans?
Right.
Then it makes you really start to recognize like, oh, there's some pattern in me. And this is where life, I think, gets to expand, is when you have the consciousness of your pattern. As long as you're running on unconscious patterning, you're just robotically existing.
Yeah.
And you can't make changes because you're unconsciously, I use the term dysfunctional.
Right.
And then you see it, and there comes the wisdom to be like, oh wow, I can stop and I can pivot and change.
The awareness.
Yeah. That's where the blessing comes in,
right.
or the grace comes in, is that, and it's also a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
If at the age of 35, 40, you realize you're the issue.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and like, oh, it's me the whole time that
right.
was resentful or sensitive or traumatized. Traumatized, you know, is like the term being used. But trauma to me is just like a life imprint.
Sure.
Something happened that scarred your nervous system. And you see it with animals too, right? Like they're responding and reacting from something that scared their brain.
Right.
And the brain is designed to survive, to help you to survive. Yeah. And so you're walking into the world with a brain pattern system that thinks the world's unsafe. Yeah. And if it was just as easy to like turn a switch on and off and just say, okay, shut it off. That happened when I was 8 years old. It's not an issue anymore. Right. So I don't have to behave that way.
I'm gonna ignore it.
Yeah, yeah. Or I'm gonna like, you know, like behave. I'm not gonna assume that this individual in my 40s is the same individual in when I was 8 years old. Right. But the brain doesn't know that. Yeah. The brain creates some kind of relationship between that experience and triggers a cascade of neurotransmitters and hormones.
Just keeps things piling on top of the other.
Yeah. And if you're unconscious, then you're reacting.
Right.
Mindfulness is, oh, this is not the same thing. Yeah. So I can welcome this individual with open arms and love, as opposed to, you know, reacting the same way I reacted when I was 8 and shut that individual off.
Yeah, I like this idea of the beauty of aging. I feel like that's kind of what we're talking about right now, is like, as long as you become aware, it doesn't matter at what point in time in your life, as long as you become aware of you, what you are, what you have done, and where you want to go, that's like the beauty of that journey of aging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's switch gears to the now. That was an amazing discussion we just had. True North.
Oh yeah.
What is True North? You were featured in a Netflix documentary talking about your work at True North.
Yep.
What's going on there?
I mean, I don't even know how to put my finger on the brilliance of this place. And the sad part is that not enough people know about True North Health. And it was started about 40 years ago by Dr. Alan Goldhammer, Penn Grove, California. And now it's a world-recognized healthcare, lifestyle, water fasting facility. Yeah. That people come from different countries. We're 6 months booked out. Wow. It's 70 patient, inpatient facility where people come to drink water from anywhere from 2 days to 40 days. Just water.
And you hear a lot about different types of fasting. Yeah. And water fasting has been one of those things, like a hot topic, and people are like, what do you mean, you just drink water all day? Can you explain what happens? Because every time I go and visit you there, the people that are like finishing up their 7-day, 8-day fasting, they're almost in this euphoric state. And they're almost godlike. Yeah. Their skin glows and they have this gigantic smile. Yeah. They always say they want to go back.
Yeah, it's so impressive.
What's happening there?
Yeah, it's so impressive. Well, water fasting has been around for antiquity. I mean, different religions, different cultures have all practiced the art of fasting. Fasting is just denying the body of intake of calories. The science behind it is when you are in a fasted state, the body starts to essentially eat itself and eat dead cellular debris, or the term is autophagy. It starts to kill off dead cellular debris. And this works so well because the cellular system is designed in such a way that it is intended for the body to optimize energy. The challenge, however, is that in today's day and age, in post-industrial era, we have no lack of calories.
Yeah.
There's an abundance and an excess of calories. And so the human is now dealing with stress, addiction, and food as addictive measure. Same thing with cigarettes and alcohol. And so what tends to happen is we have an excess of energy. We're never in a fasted state. So all these natural, primitive systems that the body has been designed for turns dysfunctional because we're eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacking throughout the day.
Right.
On processed foods, on too much salt, too much
Chemicals,
oil.
whatnot.
Yeah, we're eating because we're bored. We're eating because we're depressed.
Yeah.
We're eating just because we're watching TV. And so the body is not designed to constantly process food at that level. And it's fine in your 20s because the body's efficient. But then in your 30s, you see your blood pressure is going up. You start you develop diabetes. You're not burning fat as readily. Your joints start to hurt. And all of this is inflammation from a dysfunctional technique of consuming food.
And you're probably doing less exercise, sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
You're working class now, whatever.
It's quite asinine and maddening to really step back and look at how we're designing our way of life that's so removed from the intention of our design. And so it's really important, I think, for us to recognize it's not like, when you go to Yosemite or you go out into nature, you're sitting and looking at awe at how the whole ecosystem works, and it's like, oh my God, it's so impressive, it's so beautiful. Somehow we've removed ourselves from the reality that, that same intelligence is also us.
Right.
And so I'm looking at these animals in nature and just being so impressed by it, but we're cellularly of nature.
Right.
I'm not a table, I'm not a chair.
Right.
I'm not man-made. I'm running off that same system. So that means whatever the design is and the interconnectedness of how the nature and environment and how the sun and the oxygen systems all work together to thrive that ecosystem,
right.
I have to somehow figure out how my nervous cellular body thrives in that system. But instead, I act like I'm a chair or a table, and I've put myself into these artificial environments, artificial lighting.
But that's like the godlike mentality of man, right?
Yeah.
That we're not part of that.
Right.
That the Mother Earth system, yeah.
And it's going back to the check engine light comes on.
Yeah.
It's impossible for the body to exist outside of its function without giving feedback. The brain's constantly giving feedback in the form of pain, abdominal pain, headaches. I mean, it's a variety of things. By the time diabetes and hypertension shows up, that's a downstream effect of a check engine light that started years ago.
Yes.
And so you're going to try to reverse something, right? Like the engine blows up in the car, it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late.
And so what True North Health is, it's attempting to get the patterns of behavior out of the way. It is a impressive ecosystem where we've taken out the temptation of hamburgers and french fries and alcohol and all of the things that give humans this modicum of pleasure that we get trapped in.
Yeah.
And we say, okay, we're going to take everything out, and we're going to have you rely on your fat reserves. I use the term potential energy instead of fat, because fat has now become a derogatory term. People don't like to be called fat, or they look in the mirror and they hate the fact that they're fat.
Right.
But guess what? If there's famine and we run out of food, that's how you're going to live. By the fact that you have fat on your body. You have potential energy. That potential energy is going to save your life.
Yeah.
And the more you have, the longer you're going to be able to survive famine.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, regardless of the fact that we're not going to get into famine states, it's going to be rare for the average human to ever have to face starvation. We put an individual into a state of fast.
In a controlled environment.
In a controlled environment where they're monitored by medical doctors and medical staff twice a day. Their vitals are taken, blood work's taken. You're not going to get yourself in too much distress because you have eyes on you.
Yeah.
And the beauty of what happens is when you stop overusing your digestive tract, which consumes so much of the energy that you're eating just to burn digestive system, meaning you're eating food just to power the digestive system to eat more food.
Yeah.
And so you're just burning digestion all day long.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so when you take that equation out, the peristalsis or digestive system shuts down, so all of that energy is freed. And now your body goes to town to kill off dead cellular debris, reduces inflammation in the body.
Starts doing cleanup house.
Cleans up house. Visceral fat around the abdomen, which is probably the most detrimental to your health and well-being, is that fat that's around your organs. It's mostly dissolved when you're fasting.
Interesting.
I mean, it's so hard for individuals to lose weight just from diet and exercise alone.
Yeah.
That's extremely disciplined. You know, those individuals that are losing fat off of diet and exercise are eating a certain way.
Very much so, yeah.
And they're moving their body and exercising, and they're finding results that way. And even then, it will take a while for them to get to that abdominal fat that's creating like cancers and cardiovascular diseases and etc. Wow. And so the fasted state is just an impressive efficiency of burning fat and getting rid of excess toxins in the body. And the body detoxifies, the gut lining rests, the microbiome of the gut starts to replenish, kills off bad bacteria in the gut. Again, inflammation is resolved. As a chiropractor, it's impressive because a lot of times musculoskeletal pain is resolved from fasting. I don't even have to adjust you.
Yeah.
Your pain's gone because your inflammation's gone out.
Because you're losing the inflammation, right?
Yeah, you're losing inflammation out of your tendons. I've done this for 5 years now. And the facility is open to medical practitioners who want to come and witness the miracle of what's happening.
Yeah.
This isn't like some, out of left field,
hocus pocus,
witchery.
Yeah.
This is like science. You can come in, and it's also a research facility. So Dr. Goldhammer has already run and published plenty of articles to show the advantageous response of fasting. And
then you live it.
I live it. I see it every day.
You see it every day, yeah.
And then the caveat here is that when you're done fasting, we're not putting you back into the world to go eat hamburgers and French fries.
Right.
We're saying, okay, put into the body what is going to optimize cellular function. And this is where my philosophy is that everybody should take an anatomy and physiology class.
Sure.
Everyone. Go to your local community college, take an anatomy and physiology class. Or Khan Academy. Take some class where you start to understand your design. If I gave you a Ferrari right now, you're going to try to figure out how to make this thing work. You're not going to put diesel fuel into it and think you can take it to a beach, to drive on.
Yeah.
You own a body. You should have awareness, because when you don't have knowledge, you're going to depend on the medical systems or somebody else to tell you what to do with your body.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, because I think that's such an amazing point. You said it so well, because here we are in our body.
Yeah.
And we do not know the slightest thing about our body. And then we just rely on someone to sell us a pill or to sell us something like that. And we're not taking that initiative and responsibility to learn what this is.
Yeah, you lose power of your choices when you don't have enough knowledge and information.
Yeah.
And just the fundamental awareness of how food is broken down and how the pancreas releases insulin and how glucose spikes and when it spikes can help a person understand why you can't scarf food down at 1 o'clock in the morning every night.
Right.
Or like what happens when you overconsume ice cream.
Right.
And again, in youth, the body's more efficient at metabolizing calories.
You can shed it.
Yeah, but if you just look at the longevity of all humans, the person that is extremely fit, you'll see by the time that person's in their 30s and 40s, their body's shifted, their skin looks different.
Right.
Yeah, they start to age, and because that individual thinks they can still do the same thing that they did in their 20s. But in their 20s, they were out playing football and running around and eating whatever they were eating.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the time you're 40, you have a family, you're sitting more, you have to go to work, your stress increases, and then you find yourself trapped. And this is what Dr. Goldhammer wrote about. The book is called The Pleasure Trap. And we get trapped in these dopamine hormonal loops. And it's not that you're weak or you don't have willpower. It's that your primitive brain is designed to survive. And that's why we're all sitting here today, is because my brain wants to procreate or to pass on my genes. And so the system is chase pleasure, avoid pain, conserve energy. And it overrides everything. And again, before the Industrial Revolution, we didn't have just packages of food readily available. So you had to go to the grocery store, you had to cook all these meals.
Cook your food, you had to stand up, you had to clean it. Yeah.
And so now Uber Eats delivers too much calories and salt, oil, and sugar to your door. You don't even have to leave your Netflix couch.
Yeah.
And the body is just storing all of that fat, trying to process the toxins that's in the food. Yep. And it thinks that that amount of calorie-rich food is where the survival is. So if you try to eat a salad, the brain's been hijacked now. Totally. It's not going to think that there's anything valuable in the salad, because it thinks that this 2,000 calorie rich food is more valuable because it just triggers all the dopamine in your brain.
Definitely.
So you're going to keep going back for the to-go Chinese food or the
things that make you feel full.
The things that make you feel full, you feel full. And so the sinister component here is that actually what your cells need are what's in those leafy greens. Sure. And diversity of bell peppers and mushrooms and starches that come from earth. Yeah. It's funny, maybe you've just done this for too long, because it almost seems like a no-brainer to me. Like, it almost seems like, oh wow, okay, wow, nature has a system. Right. And as long as that system, it's designed in such an eloquent way, it almost seems like there's an architect to it. And if you can compose your life to be within that, the cellular system supports you. Yeah. And it's just not designed to eat McDonald's. Right. It is designed to eat from nature. Right. And the closer you can get things off of the tree, off of the plant, and then your enzymes break it down, those components are instantly going into your bloodstream. Yeah. And the bloodstream is essentially a river. It's a river that runs through the ecosystem. It's so funny. It's like systems theories, like these systems just increase. We look at the cellular system, or we look at our Earth system. We're just another system. Right. And it keeps breaking down into the atomic system, right? Cellular system, atomic system, and we are our own ecosystem. You're not looking at like the Sierras and being like, wow, look at how amazing the system works. You are the system. Right, and that's the amazing part about, and that was amazingly said, but that's part of this whole beautiful design of the planet and life that we live in, right? Like, we're just this blip on this part of a system that has been perfecting itself for millennium. Oh yeah. Right? And then so now here we are at this point where we're trying to augment this beautifully harmonious system by inserting these desires, these cravings. Oh, it's beautiful, actually. Yeah. Yeah, because now you're getting into like the spiritual component of like, I'm waking up as the ecosystem. Sure. And the sad part is that we have this immense potential, and we're trapped in animalistic fear states that are easily controlled by institutions that tell us who we are. And so instead of being able to like create and use our health to be able to experience and to create and to love, develop further. Yeah, to develop further to like really expand my potential and my capacity to manifest and to create things in life, I'm trapped in feeling unworthy or not good enough or not beautiful enough, and then using capitalism and clothing and fashion to validate who I am. And it's a wasted life if you're validating yourself based off of the latest fashion. Yeah, I was just in a conversation with Colin, who you know, and we were talking about outlets. And a lot of the times where people fall into ruts
is their only positive, as they see positive outlet, is consumerism. And so they don't have a positive outlet to do art, to do exercise, to go play drums, to do mountain biking, these things. So their only outlet that they can see, that they feel defines them based on this crazy culture that we live in, is consumerism. So then they just buy into that free market capitalist system, and they just buy into that reality.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if it's intentionally designed this way, or if we've just kind of organically evolved into a capitalistic system. I think maybe it's a little bit of both, because we are inherently animal, and so that means that we inherently have survival and competitiveness, and I think that can play off as greed.
Yeah.
And then, he who has the most power can control the masses. Yeah. And, and it seems to be optimizing on media and propaganda, or utilizing the psychology of being able to control most humans. Because you can keep people pretty satisfied with their things.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like it's a wasted life if you find, that you're just existing to consume. You really miss out on the beauty of being human, which is our creatorship. And I think artists can understand that, because it's like, wow, that thing came from me. Right. Like, that thing from nothing has spawned from me. And that's the opposite of consuming, where it's like I'm consuming other people's things, and that's giving me like hits of satisfaction, versus this like thing that's come from me, and that seems to last a little bit longer.